So I understand where you're coming from in that.
From this, I draw something that comes to my mind, is that if we look at nature, nature has day and night, and there's an always continuous progress and growth. I love to use the example of a navigation system. I think most of us have navigation systems within our car because we travel and we go from place to place, and now it's just much easier to plot into the navigation system. First thing the navigation system does is it plots via GPS and it defines where you are. So you need to know where you are. From that, you've put in an address and you say, I want to get to this place, this location. Now, if we use this GPS example, which I love to use personally and teach to others, once you coordinate where you are, and once you put in an address to where you want to go, that GPS will do everything it can to take you there. We've all experienced this. If you take the wrong turn on the road, well, guess what? It'll recalculate and redirect you.
Yes.
Yeah. If there are speed humps on the road, which there will be, it'll still get you to your destination.
Yes.
If there are traffic lights, which there will be, it'll still get you to the destination. Now, I like to use that example and define our mind as that GPS.
Yes.
If you are so clear on where you are, and you are so clear on where you want to get to, then all these things and all these obstacles and all these red traffic lights and all these speed humps actually become something that you look forward to, and I'll explain to you why, Ralph. See, when we're faced with a challenge, in my experience, it's been the most propelling period of my life. See, life is best understood backwards. At a time when we're faced with a challenge or a problem, we can't justify and we say, why is this happening to me? And we have this poor me attitude and we say, it always happens to me. But if you actually look at that in an empowered perspective, and then you reflect back to, say, nature, which has time and day, the yin-yang, night and day, and the yin-yang and black and white. If you look at nature and you get a magnet, you get a piece of magnet, and you slice it down as thin as you can, you'll always have a positive and a negative.
Yes, absolutely.
Every single time. If you look at a battery, in nature it's defined, that's how you draw electricity. If you look at a battery, you can't just connect to the positive terminal.
Yeah, it's true.
You've got to close the circuit. You've got to actually connect to both positive and negative. Now, unfortunately, what happens to life is that people just want to live in this fairy la-la land that everything's going to be perfect.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, it's not. And a lot of people say to me, hey, you're a motivational speaker. Well, no, I'm not a motivational speaker. I'm a strategic speaker and coach.
Yes.
But I like to inspire, because motivation is like, you know, I use the example of putting some fire or putting a flame under a kettle. It'll boil for a bit. Once you take that flame away, it's gone.
Absolutely.
Yeah?
Look, I couldn't agree with you more.
But you put that terminal inside and you find inspiration from within, and you say, right, every speed hump, every challenge that I face in my life, in my relationship, in my business, I'm going to use it to propel me. So we said the navigation system, even though there's a traffic light, that navigation system doesn't care.
Yes.
The navigation system knows that, yeah, your foot's on the brake for a few minutes, but once you take off, all it worries about is getting you there. There's a speed hump, you're going to take it at a slower pace, but once you're over that speed hump, you're going to go. Navigation system doesn't worry about who's on the road, what distractions there are. All the navigation cares about is to get you there. Now, if you program your mind to do that efficiently and effectively, you'll only ever have success in life, because every moment, every situation, every obstacle in your life that you're faced with that you perceive to be negative, you can actually now use and say, right, what is the lesson in this for me? How can I turn this experience? You know, in fact, Ralph, I just realised that by embracing all the negative situations and saying, right, this didn't actually go really well, this situation didn't go well, this business venture didn't go well, if you learn from that, it's never going to happen to you again, because you've taken your lesson.
Yes.
Nature has this funny thing, and I'm sure a lot of us can relate to this. We fall into the same toxic relationships, we fall into the same failures, same business ventures that go wrong, and so on and so on. And people say to me, why? I've failed, 10 times over the years. Yeah. And I ask them some questions, and I find that it's a repetitive behaviour that they're doing.
Absolutely.
And to me, I believe that there's a massive spiritual part to not only our life and our relationships, but in business as well. And if you haven't learned your lesson, that teacher keeps coming until you learn it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that teacher could be in the form of a person or a situation or whatever it may be, but it is so important to sit and reflect. And I do this all the time. I sit and reflect. Every dealing I have, every relationship I have, every talk I give, every seminar I hold, every coaching session I have, this interview, I'll sit and I'll reflect. Yeah. How did I do it, and what can I do better in the future? Yes. Because life and success is purely about progression. And it's about progressing. It doesn't have to be a massive progress. It has to be incremental but continuous. Continuous improvement every single day.
You know, one of the reasons for my success over the years in business, and I've had many failures, as you know, is that I've always looked at a problem when a problem has occurred in a positive situation and not focus on the negative.
Yes.
And a lot of people, unfortunately, when a problem occurs in their life, they focus on that negative and they don't look at what they could do to make the situation better, or how they could use that to learn from the
Yes.
situation. And you know, and I've had the opportunity now to travel the world, and I've spoken in many countries and literally shared the stage with some phenomenal people and thought leaders that are really inspirational just to be with. And I find that they have the same lesson, that their success has come through just the mistakes that they've made and looking at the situation and not focusing on the negative, but looking at what the opposite side of that could be. So every situation they've gotten into, they've learned from it and turned it around. And in life, I think too many times, generally people focus on the problem.
Yes.
And it's always a negative thought, you know, instead of saying, okay, here's the situation, what can I do to get out of it? Activate the mind, stimulate the brain to come up with something that can actually benefit and take the lesson out of it and continue to grow. You know, I studied a little bit of Buckminster Fuller's work, and one thing that I like about Bucky Fuller is he had this theory where he had, you know, test something, fail at it, and learn from it, right? And it was continually test, fail, and learn. And the reason that he came up with this theory is that you can't learn any less. Once you've learnt it, you've learnt it.
That's right.
So therefore, even though you keep testing, failing, but learning, you've still got growth, right? You must have the lesson out of the failure. If you don't have a lesson, it becomes a failure. See, my philosophy is that failure is not about falling down. You know, you will go through life with many times where you'll fall down. You know, when we were kids, when we were like toddlers, you know, we fell down many times before we actually started to walk. Can you imagine if we never got up?
That's right.
No one would ever walk.
That's right.
So, you know, there's going to be times in life where you are going to fall down. So failure is not falling down. Failure is when you're not prepared to get up. And in my situations over the years, and I've come close to bankruptcy 3 times in my life.
Yeah.
You know, people say to me, oh, well, you know, that's not bad, you know. Yeah, close to bankruptcy is when you're hanging on for dear life. Bankruptcy is easy, you know, you can wipe the slate and start all over again, and, you know, you don't worry about who you've hurt. I was very mindful of that. So therefore, that was avoided at all costs. And for me, once I had that mindset that bankruptcy was just not an option, right, I got back up, dusted myself off,
Yes.
and looked at what I can do to get out of the situation and not stay in it. And whatever creative formula I had to come up with, that's what's gotten me through to where I am today, to be able to take my lesson out to the world to make a difference. So you don't make the same mistake out there that I've made. Because in life, we need to learn from our mistakes to be able to teach them. And this is why the interview here is today, to learn from people that have lived and gone through these situations and get you set for success in your life.